Okay, guys, so today I'm going to be telling you about the OOP concept and we're just gonna dive in. So, so this is a little new for me, but what we're going to do is basically talk about the OOP feature. And the OOP feature is OOP Object-Oriented Programming, which is basically we'll start on the history first, and then we're going to talk about characteristics. Start with OOP, and then we'll go to the meaning. So I'll get a pen. I'll get a brush here. Okay. So normally, not normally, a long time ago when programming was created, was something called procedural programming, which was basically that I write a bunch of code here, write a bunch of code here, and my code would compile to bytecode, and that's it. Nothing else would happen. But it actually was really bad because I couldn't use it in, let's say, different situations. So let's specify C, which is the, let's say, just the parent of Python, because its interpreter is based on C. Is actually a procedural game, not a procedural game, a procedural language. And what that meant was that whenever you would write code in a really long script, it could only do one specific purpose. Now, this was very unsatisfactory to people because they wanted more, but they didn't know how. Okay, I'm trying to. Okay, let's just zoom in, and we're just gonna focus that. Now procedural was great and all, but programmers still didn't like it because it had many features which were bad, which was that it could only do one purpose, only one purpose. So what they decided was that they would make a language that had a OOP oriented feature, and this first language was C++ and Java. Now, these languages are OOP-oriented, meaning by object-oriented programming. So the purpose of these were that instead of having procedural features, meaning by pointers, you would have variables, and second, you would actually have something called objects. Now, objects are basically defined in one feature. They have not one feature, they have characteristics, so we'll name that red. They have moods, so we'll do this, and they have states and behaviors. So this is like a mood, this is the state and this is the behavior. Now the behavior is something called an instance variable. Now there's many different types of variables: global variables, local variables, and non-local variables in Python programming. But instance variables are variables that you create outside of a class. And that's usually what people do in Python programming and in any other programming. This section would actually be something called methods. It's inside a class. So when we define a class in Python, we actually, what we do is when we create the class, we have to write something in the void. And anything here is the instance variable. So we could write something called a method, which could be a void or something that returns. So let's just okay. So there was a void, and this was basically the characteristics of the object. Now this was only one object, and the purpose of an object is that it can do multiple features, like in a game such as Mario. It's a very fun game, I get it, but Mario is an object. Its characteristics is the entire code inside here, and this is the behavior, meaning by the instance variables, meaning by if it's going to jump, what's the x coordinate, what's the y coordinate, and this is actually going to be the methods. So what should I do with this code right here? Now this is basically very hard because Mario was only one character and you have to focus it on other characters. We know that. But also because object-oriented programming, you have to write specifically about the characteristics and the moods. It was easier than procedural, but it was just not enough. So I'm gonna actually create a really big canvas. Okay. Okay, so I figured it out. Let's just jump right in. Okay, so let's just actually so these objects, which were, let me just get home, go here, brushes, yes, okay, so these objects were a little bit easier, now, but what factored into this was that it just wasn't enough. So in 1995, a person that knew C wanted to create a language that was bent and its purpose was on readability. So they created something which was dynamic programming. So basically dynamic programming actually grabbed features between object-oriented programming and procedural. And what happened was that object-oriented programming was really helpful for programmers in Python. And how is that? It's because in object-oriented programming, people could specify and actually make their code more distinguishable and more powerful. Meaning by I could say something like class dog, and then I would have my code here. Now the code would actually, oh, this is really dirty, sorry. So I would have a class and I would write my name here, and I would have 2 dots there, and I would write my code here in like a def function, which means would. And what this did was whenever I needed to actually ask a class and I actually wanted to repeat all of the functions inside of it, it would have been more powerful because I just have to name this class in my code. And what actually would happen is that I could do this multiple times. So let's talk about the Mario game, whatever it's called. It's a very fun game. We get that, but we could actually specify about characters in this class, and we could actually display them. So this could be class display, and I know that's very dirty, but this class could be class display, and what actually would happen is, let me just, what actually would happen is that in the display class, I would display my code, and then in some other class, I would represent it. And this, moment after moment, like event after event, this would make my code really look more readable, which is the purpose of the Python programming language.